So communication barriers can be defined as the aspects or conditions that interfere with effective exchange of ideas or thoughts. The speaker should know the vocabulary level of the listeners. If there is any word which is complicated, you should explain those words in a very simple way. This is called language barriers. Gender barriers can be managed by having patience and understanding each other's psychology. Hello everyone, this is Poorna Chandra, Faculty Department of Commerce and Management, Vidhyaashram. So we are dealing with the subject management principles and practice, and today we are starting a new unit, that is unit 4, and today will be your first session, and the name of the unit is directing and communicating. So we will start. So in today's class we'll be understanding what is the meaning of direction, nature and principles of directing all directions, communication, meaning and importance, communication process, what all takes place in a communication process, barriers to communication, and how to overcome those communication barriers, the different steps, and also the various types of communications. So this is the agenda for today's class. So we will start. Meaning of directing. So we will understand. Directing is a process through which a manager communicates with and influence other members of the organization in the pursuit of company objectives. So there is a company objective. You want to produce certain products within a given span of time. So what you do is, apart from planning, organizing and staffing, you also have to carry out the function of directing. So what you do here is, you motivate the employees, you influence them, you consider yourself as the leader and you influence them to achieve the company objectives. This is the basic meaning of directing. So next, nature of direction. The first one is, it is a dynamic function. What is the meaning of dynamic? Dynamic means continuous change. That is, the environment in which the business operates is dynamic. So directing is also dynamic. That is, you cannot get fixed to a particular way of motivating people, leading people. So as the business environment changes, you should also change your style of directing. That is, it is a dynamic function. Second one, initiates action. So the main purpose of directing people is to carry out certain actions that are necessary to achieve organization goals. That is, initiate actions, provides necessary link between various managerial functions. That is, various managerial functions like planning, organizing, staffing, controlling. So what directing is doing here, it is also a managerial functions. What it is doing is, it is providing necessary link between different managerial functions like planning, organizing, staffing and also controlling. So next, it is a universal function. Wherever you go, wherever business activities takes place, management has to be there. Wherever management is there, direction or directing also should be there. This is universal function. Fifth one, it is concerned with human relationships. Obviously, when you are directing, you are not directing a machine or a job. So you are directing people or human beings. So it is concerned with human relationships. This is the nature of directing. So next we go for the principles of directions. The first principle of direction is principle of maximum individual contribution. What is the meaning of this? So maximum individual contribution means you are motivating the employees inside the organization in such a way that they contribute maximum. They give their maximum and they contribute maximum out of themselves. That is the meaning. Second one, principle of harmony of objectives. So in any organization, there will be two kinds of objectives. The first objective is the employer side of objective. That is, the company has to make profit. The second objective is the employees side of objective. That is, they want fair and competent salary. So two objectives are there. So what direction does is, it brings harmony between these two objectives. That is, the business entity should also make profit. At the same time, the employees should also be satisfied with the salary that they are getting. So this is called harmony of objectives. Next, principle of unity of command. Obviously, when a person is motivating, leading or influencing the employees, there should be unity of command. That is, employees should get direction from only one superior. That is principle of unity of command. Next, principle of appropriateness of direction techniques. That is, you cannot use the same technique of directions for all situations. You should select the technique which is suitable for the situation. That is principle of appropriateness of direction technique. So next, we go for principle of managerial communication. That is, being a leader or being a manager, you should be well versed with what is called as managerial communication. That is, you should know how to speak with employees, you should know how to speak with other subordinates, you should know how to communicate with other delegates that might come to visit your organization. So, principle of managerial communication teaches the managers how to direct different set of employees inside the organization, how to communicate them, because directing is nothing but communicating. Without communication, there is no direction. So, that is the meaning of that. Principle of use of informal organization. So, informal organization is something that exists within the formal organization. So, what here it is explained is, for example, a worker is not doing well. So, instead of going and targeting him in front of everyone, you can speak to him personally in an informal organization. That is, when there is a space where only that person and you, being a manager, are there, you can speak with him in a polite manner and rectify what mistakes he is doing. So that is called informal organization. Principle of leadership. So you, being a manager, should project yourself as a leader and you should set a role model to the other employees in the organization. Suppose you are only very weak and you don't possess any leadership qualities, then what happens? Obviously, the employees are not motivated, they are not influenced, which is a negative thing for the organization. So, being a manager, you should project yourself as a leader and you should be a role model to the employees or other managers in the organization. Then, principle of follow through. So, just by directing, the work is not over. You should make sure that you follow up with the activities, whether the workers are implementing what you have directed them. So, if they are implemented, well and good. Otherwise, if they have not implemented your directions, then something is wrong. You will have to intervene and get things implemented. This is the meaning of principle of follow through. So, these are the principles of directions. So, next we go for communication. What is communication? Meaning, communication is a transfer of information from one person to another. That is, you have got something, you want to communicate to the other person. This process is called communication. Communication is the exchange of facts. So basically, you got some facts, you got some good knowledge. To share your knowledge, you are communicating. That is facts. Next, ideas. Suppose you got a very good idea to start a business and you think it will work out. So you communicate with other people so that you get some partners to start the business. That is ideas. Then you go for opinions. That is, something is happening inside the organization, some production work is happening. So you got some opinion or a feedback on the production work. So you communicate your opinion to the managers. That is opinions. And next, emotions. That is, if you are happy, you express it with communication. And on the other hand, if you are not happy also, you will express it with communication. So you need communication to deal with or to communicate facts, ideas, opinions or emotions by two or more people. That is, one person cannot communicate. There should be minimum two people, two or more people for a communication process to take place. So this is the meaning of communication. Next, we go for importance of communication. What are the different importance of communication? The first one is to share information, you are communicating. Second one, feedback. You started a business and you want to know the feedback of the people. So what you do, whether it is negative or positive, you want them to communicate. If they communicate only, you come to know the feedback. Otherwise, you will not get the feedback from the people. This is feedback. Influence. So you want to influence the people to work well in the organization. You communicate. Then problem solving. There are a lot of problems that are occurring in the business. So to deal with those problems, to find the solution for those problems, you communicate. Next, it is assist in decision making. Now you want to frame decisions in the organization. You are a top level manager. You sit together, you communicate and come out with the decisions and you frame the plans. That is decision making. Next, facilitating change. Now you want to bring about a change in the production process. You want to upgrade to new technology and you want to change the production process. For that also you need to communicate. Without communication you cannot change. Next, group building. So obviously there's a group of people and you want to make it as a team and you want to build it as a team. You have to communicate with them. You have to tell your ideologies and you should speak to them in such a way that they get motivated and influenced to become a team. That is group building. Next, coordination of efforts. Yes, there are different departments in the organization like finance, marketing or production. To coordinate with the different departments, the general manager has to communicate with finance manager, marketing manager and production manager. That is coordination of efforts. Development of managerial skills. So to develop managerial skills, there need training and development has to take place. So training and development is impossible without communication. So with communication, you will be able to inculcate managerial skills. So that is one advantage of communication. Then motivating people, obviously, without speaking, you cannot motivate. So you have to communicate to motivate people. So these are the importance of communication. So next we go for the process of communication. It is very simple. So I'll just explain this. So there's a sender, he speaks something and it is encoded and through a message channel, whatever it might be, whether it is through air or whether it is through wires, optic fibers or anything, it is decoded and it reaches the receiver. This is the communication process and it is very simple. So next, barriers to communication. So meaning of barrier, an obstacle in a place that prevents us from completing certain tasks. So here we are dealing with only the meaning of barrier. So what happens is, it is any obstacle that comes in the way for achieving a particular task. So you can call it as a barrier. Now what is communication barrier? So communication barriers can be defined as the aspects or conditions that interfere with effective exchange of ideas or thoughts. So that is, you're speaking something, so the other person is not able to listen to you because of some barriers. For example, you're speaking something, so the other person, you're speaking well, the communication is good, vocabulary is good, but the other person is not able to hear you because there is no mic. So that is a communication barrier. So likewise, there are many barriers which we will understand now. So next, types of communication barriers. So these are the different types of communication barriers which we will be understanding in this chapter. First one is physical, second one is cultural, language barriers, emotional barriers, gender barriers, organizational barriers and perceptual barriers. So now we will deal one by one how to overcome these kinds of barriers. So the first one is your physical barriers. What are the different kinds of physical barriers? The first one, to overcome physical communication barriers, we should update with the latest technology and choose a suitable environment. For example, there are thousands of people listening to a speech and there's a problem with the mic and the sound set. What happens, even though the speaker is speaking very well, many people, only the front row people are able to listen to him and the remaining people are not able to listen to him. So that is a physical barrier. How you can overcome is, you should make sure that there is a technology that reaches the audience. That is, 1,000 people are sitting, there should be a technology or a mic or a sound system which is audible to the entire crowd. This is called physical barriers and how you deal with these barriers. Next, cultural barriers. Culture decides the way of seeing, hearing and interpreting the world. So on, in order to deal with this, we should work in groups. So cultural barriers. In India, there are n different types of cultures. For example, one word in Kannada has a different meaning with a similar word in Telugu. Both the words are same, but the meaning is different. So that is a cultural barrier. So before you're speaking, You should make sure what is the culture of people who is listening to you, so that you can sort things out. So how you deal with cultural barriers is, once you know their culture, you can clarify them there itself, that what kind of word you are using, whether it is having different meaning in Kannada or Telugu. You can clarify there itself so that everything is sorted out. Next, language barriers. It is caused by inadequate vocabulary. Manage by speaking slowly and clearly and by asking clarification. Suppose there is a speaker speaking, his vocabulary is only inadequate and he is using certain words, the meaning which he only doesn't know. So what happens is, obviously he cannot speak well. So that is language barrier. There's one more aspect for language barrier. Suppose there's a crowd, they don't have so much of knowledge in English vocabulary and the speaker is speaking in a very flowery language or high-end words. So what happens here, people definitely they won't be able to understand what he is speaking because they don't know what the meaning of the words he is speaking. So this is a language barriers. So to deal with this, the speaker should know the vocabulary level of the listeners. If there is any word which is complicated, he should explain those words in a very simple way. This is called language barriers. Emotional barriers. Next, emotional state may influence your capacity to make yourself understood. This could be managed by motivation and commitment to change, and also by mentoring. Emotional barriers means, for example, is a very good speaker and is a world-class speaker, and what happens, he's got a speech to deliver and just half an hour before the speech there is an accident. His son has met with an accident and he is admitted to the hospital. Obviously he won't be able to deliver a good speech because mentally he is absent on the stage. So what happens is, this is an emotional barrier. That is, even though you are well versed, even though you are an expert, because of certain situations your emotions are bad. As a result of bad emotions, you won't be able to deliver your communication process. That is emotional barriers. So how you deal with emotional barriers is, if that is the case, you can take some motivational tips, or if you are not able to deliver the speech, you can postpone your speech and cancel the program. This is the emotional barrier. Next, gender barriers. Gender barriers can be managed by having patience and understanding each other's psychology. So obviously gender barrier means men's psychology is way different from that of women. So when a man is delivering a speech and the listeners are women, then he should understand the psychology of women before speaking anything to them. This is gender barriers. Suppose he doesn't know the psychology of women, there may be certain things he is speaking that might have a negative reflection on women who are listening to them. So this is gender barrier. That is, before speaking to the opposite gender, you should understand the psychology and you should understand what you are speaking to them and relate it to the women's psychology, and then go ahead with your speech. This is gender barriers. Organizational barriers. These barriers can be managed by expressing yourself in a restrictive environment. What does this mean? Now there's an organization. What they have done is, they have made strict rules and regulations that only top level managers have to decide regarding the plans and no one else should interfere. Now what happens is, that is a barrier, because even though workers or other subordinates have good ideas, they won't be able to express because the rule says that only top level managers has to come out with the plans. So in such a situation, how do you deal with these barriers? You should express yourself in a restrictive environment. What may happen? Let me express my idea. It is very good. So once I express, obviously they will take it. So this is organization barriers, and how you deal with these organization barriers. That is, you express yourself even though there is restrictions. That is the thing. Next, perceptual barriers. So first we will understand what is perception. Perception means difference of opinions, and this can be managed by listening to others carefully and by clarifying anything if there is confusion. What is perception? Before we get into perceptual barriers, we will understand what is perception. So basically perception means your viewpoint about something. Your perception may be a reality or may not be a reality. That is, for example, my viewpoint might be right for me. That doesn't mean it should be correct for others. So what happens here is each one's viewpoint is different. What is right for me might not be right for someone else, and what is right for someone else might not be right for me. So what happens is you can deal with these kind of barriers by listening to others carefully and sorting things out by communicating with them. Now you are giving a speech and you are telling your point of view about life. That doesn't mean everyone listening to you should follow what you are telling. So what happens is there will be confusion. Suppose when you're speaking, when people, if they are got confused, you can speak to them. You can give them an opportunity to clarify their doubts so that you overcome the perceptual barriers. So this is how to overcome communication barriers. So next we go for the different types of communication, that is verbal communication. Verbal communication is nothing but you're speaking and the other person is listening. So if it is audible, if he is understanding, it is a good verbal communication. You are speaking something, even though if it is audible and the other person is not understanding, then it is not an effective verbal communication. Next is non-verbal communication. You are speaking, so it is not only about what is audible. There are certain things that is also there, that is your facial expression, how you express yourself while speaking, then also your posture, how you are standing, your eye contact, that is what kind of eye contact you are making with the listener, and also your hand movements, something called kinesics, your hand movements, so that you enhance your communication. So these things enhance your verbal communication. So it is the part of communication in which all these things are not audible but they are visible. That is the meaning. Next, written communication, writing your letters, memos. Now everything is online. Your email, your WhatsApp texting, your Facebook texting, your Instagram texting, your post, your status, stories, everything is written communication. Listening. Someone is speaking to you and you are listening. That is also a kind of communication. Then after that, visual communication. So now you people are watching this video. So you are looking at it and you are getting the communication. That is visual communication. That is, you are watching a movie or you are watching something knowledgeable on YouTube, some video, or any of your friend has sent some video which is very helpful for you regarding gaining some knowledge. So you are looking at it and you are grasping things. This is visual communication. So these are the types of communications. So with this we are done for today's class. In tomorrow's class, what we will be dealing is motivation theories. There are 3 different theories which we will be understanding. The first one is Maslow's need hierarchy theory. Second one is Hertzberg's 2-factor theory. And third one is McGregor's X and Y theory. And after that, we will also be understanding leadership, meaning, characteristics, and different kinds of leadership styles. Thank you.